At the beginning of the film, we are introduced to a couple, Sarah and John. John is always preoccupied with his work, while Sarah is pregnant. One day, when Sarah falls gravely ill, she tries calling John repeatedly, but he doesn't answer her calls. When Sarah finally returns home, she is met with devastating news: her unborn child has died. From that day onward, Sarah becomes deeply saddened and withdrawn. She stops leaving the house, consumed by her grief. In an effort to help Sarah move forward, John decides to make a change. He suggests they move to a new house, hoping a fresh environment will distract Sarah and help her heal. To Sarah, this idea doesn't seem so bad, and the two of them begin searching for a new home online. They visit many houses in person, but fail to find one they like for over a month. Just as they're about to give up on their search, a woman tells them about her friend, Amy, who owns a mansion and is looking to sell it. Intrigued, John and Sarah decide to visit the address. The house is located in a remote and desolate area. From the moment they see the mansion, they feel something strange, as if the house has an eerie presence. However, stepping inside changes everything. They are stunned. It isn't just a house, it's a grand, beautiful mansion, more like a palace. They meet Amy, the owner, who begins showing them around. While doing so, she tells them that the house was built in 1980 and took about 20 years to renovate. The intricate craftsmanship and luxurious design are proof of the time and effort poured into it. Sarah instantly falls in love with the house. It feels like her dream home. Everything she could want is here. While chatting, Amy prepares lunch for them. Over the meal, she asks, "Why do you want to live in such an isolated place?" Sarah replies, "We've been through a lot of pain in life. Now, we just want a fresh start, somewhere quiet." Hearing this, Amy agrees and encourages them to stay in the house for a day or two before they make a decision about buying it. John and Sarah are thrilled and eagerly agree to her offer. However, Amy gives them one very specific instruction: do not open the basement door under any circumstances. That night, they stay in the mansion. The following morning, when they go looking for Amy, they find she is gone. All that remains is a letter. In the letter, Amy states that she is gifting the mansion to them. This news shocks John and Sarah. How could someone they barely know give away such a lavish home? The letter mentions only one condition: do not open the basement door. John finds it hard to believe what's happening. He suspects there's something unusual about this deal. Either Amy is playing a strange joke on them, or there's a dark secret hidden behind that basement door. Later, the woman who first introduced them to Amy arrives at the house with the property papers. To John's surprise, everything seems legitimate. Amy really did transfer the house to them. Even though John remains skeptical, Sarah convinces him to accept the house. "Look, John, this house has everything we need," she says. "If we bought another house, we'd spend so much on renovations. But here, we don't have to spend a single penny. Why not take it?" Reluctantly, John agrees, and they move into the mansion. For a while, life seems happy. They even throw a housewarming party to celebrate their new home. Among the guests is Lisa, John's ex-girlfriend. Unknown to Sarah, John had an affair with Lisa during their marriage. However, after the tragic death of their son, John cut ties with her. Seeing Lisa at the party fills him with fear. He doesn't want Sarah to discover their past. John pulls Lisa aside and asks her, "Why are you here? What do you want?" Lisa replies, "I have no agenda. A friend invited me, that's all." Before their conversation can go further, they hear Sarah screaming. John rushes outside to find strangers holding bottles of gasoline, threatening to burn the house down. "Leave this house peacefully, or we'll destroy it," they warn. Though deeply shaken, the men leave without causing any harm. The next day, John's troubles escalate. At work, he learns that Lisa has filed a false complaint against him, resulting in his suspension. Distraught, John keeps this from Sarah, fearing it might reveal his connection to Lisa. He pretends everything is fine, but the stress begins to consume him. At home, John grows increasingly fixated on the basement door. He cannot stop thinking about Amy's strange warning. One day, he tries to open the door using a rod to break the lock, but it doesn't budge. Determined to uncover the truth, he decides to investigate the house's blueprints. John visits the company that designed the mansion and asks for its plans. The employee there makes a startling comment: "You're not the first person to ask for the design of this house." The previous owners were also curious, but no one ever came back after requesting it. He also reveals that Amy lived in the mansion about 20 years ago, but mysteriously, her wife left her and took their daughter without any explanation. This revelation only deepens John's curiosity. He becomes convinced that the secret of Amy's family is hidden in the basement. He returns home, determined to uncover the truth. Using the blueprints as a guide, he manages to unlock the basement door. At first, the basement seems normal. But as John explores further, he discovers a hidden cellar beneath the floorboards. Removing the planks, he steps inside and is hit with a horrifying realization: what he has uncovered ties directly back to Sarah's past. He immediately ran out of the basement, locked the door, and tried to act normal. He didn't want Sarah to find out that he had been down there. That night, John received a phone call from Lisa. She sounded angry and threatening, insisting that he meet her. John reluctantly agreed to meet her the next day, hoping to resolve the issues she had caused at his office. During their meeting, John requested that she clear up the false accusations she had made about him. However, Lisa became even more furious when she realized John had come only to protect his own interests. Feeling betrayed, she decided to take revenge. She resolved to tell Sarah the truth about their affair, that John had cheated on her. The next day, we see Sarah at home, feeling unwell. She began to suspect that she might be pregnant. To confirm her suspicions, she took a pregnancy test, and her suspicion turned into joy: it was positive. Excited by the news, Sarah wanted to share it with John immediately. However, as she reached for her phone to call him, it accidentally fell to the floor. While retrieving it, she noticed the house's blueprints tucked underneath the table. Curious, she started examining them and quickly realized that John had been investigating the basement. Feeling suspicious, Sarah decided to go into the basement herself, just as John had done. Meanwhile, Lisa arrived at the house. She intended to tell Sarah about John's infidelity, but Sarah wasn't upstairs when she entered. While waiting for Sarah, Lisa noticed the pregnancy test and immediately understood what it meant. Overcome with jealousy, her anger turned into hatred. When Sarah finally came upstairs, she noticed that the front door was open. She quietly shut it, unaware that someone, Lisa, had entered her home. That evening, John returned and noticed Lisa's car leaving the driveway. Alarmed, he became paranoid. Had Lisa told Sarah everything? Furious and afraid, John began following Lisa's car, desperate to understand why she had come to his house. However, after following her for some time, he couldn't figure out her intentions, so he angrily returned home. When he arrived, Sarah was waiting for him. She immediately confronted him, asking, "Why did you open the basement door?" John, startled, tried to make excuses. "There's nothing down there," he claimed. "I opened it, but didn't find anything." John intentionally avoided mentioning the hidden cellar he had discovered beneath the floorboards, which he had already resealed. Sarah, however, had her own news to share. Smiling, she told him, "We're going to be parents again." John was overjoyed, and for a moment, the grief of losing their first child seemed to lessen. John's day took another positive turn when he received an update from his office. The accusations Lisa had made against him were found to be baseless, and his suspension was lifted. For the first time in a long while, John felt relaxed. His life seemed to be getting back on track, and now, with a new baby on the way, he was ready to start fresh. Excited about the pregnancy, John began preparing a nursery in the mansion. While working on the room, he noticed a small hole in the wall behind an old cabinet. Upon closer inspection, he found a bullet lodged inside. He immediately remembered Amy's old collection of firearms that she had shown him when they first visited the house. This discovery deeply unsettled him. It was now clear to John that Amy had likely murdered her family, and their bodies were probably hidden in the basement. He shared his suspicions with Sarah, who became equally anxious. While discussing what to do next, they were interrupted by a sudden knock at the door. When John opened it, he was greeted by police officers, who brought shocking news: Lisa had been murdered. Her car had been found abandoned in the nearby woods. The police wanted to question John, as his affair with Lisa and the accusations she made against him had become widely known. Many believed John had a motive for revenge. During the investigation, John could hardly defend himself, but Sarah intervened. She lied to the officers, insisting that John had been at home all day, leaving no room for suspicion. Convinced by her statement, the police left without conducting a thorough investigation. However, after the officers left, Sarah was furious. The police had told her about John's affair with Lisa, and she could no longer hide her anger. When she confronted John, he tried to explain. "It's all in the past," he insisted. "I ended it long ago." But Sarah silenced him. "I've known all along," she admitted. "The day our son died, I knew. I kept calling you, and you ignored me because you were with her. I tolerated it all because I wanted to keep this family together. But not anymore. I won't let my child grow up with a father accused of murder." John pleaded with her. "Listen to me, Sarah. I didn't do anything to Lisa. You have to believe me." But Sarah was resolute. She left, leaving John alone with his thoughts. Now consumed with guilt, paranoia, and frustration, John began piecing everything together. He realized that ever since they had moved into the mansion, their problems had only grown worse. He started to suspect that the house itself might be cursed, and that the secret to all his misfortunes lay hidden in the basement. Determined to uncover the truth, John sought out the man the house designer had mentioned, the one to whom Amy had given the house before. To John's shock, the man turned out to be the same person who had threatened him during the housewarming party, warning him to leave the house or face its consequences. Surprisingly, the man welcomed John into his home and agreed to speak openly about the mansion. "At first, I was thrilled," the man admitted. "A free luxury house, it felt like a dream. But as time went on, I realized this house is nothing but trouble. It ruined my life. I became addicted to alcohol, my family left me, and everything fell apart. I'm convinced the house is cursed." Hearing this, John's suspicions grew stronger. He now believed that the mansion was more than just a home, it was a source of darkness and despair. And the key to unraveling its curse lay buried in the basement. John was determined to find out what was in the basement, especially after hearing the strange story about the house being cursed. He wanted answers, but the man he spoke to refused to provide any clear explanation. The man simply said, "Just remember one thing, never open the basement door." Frustrated and suspicious, John decided to take matters into his own hands. He returned home and broke the lock on the basement door, ignoring all warnings. Just as he was about to go down into the basement, Sarah rushed to stop him. She begged him not to go any further, but John, now overcome with anger and curiosity, refused to listen. Left with no other choice, Sarah struck John with a large stick, knocking him unconscious. When John regained consciousness, it was morning. He found himself in their bedroom. As soon as he opened his eyes, Sarah sat beside him and revealed a shocking truth: it wasn't John who had killed Lisa, it was Sarah. Sarah confessed, "I went into the basement, just like you. But I didn't find anything there. When I came back upstairs, I found Lisa on the second floor. She was holding my pregnancy test in her hand, and she was walking around the house. Then she said something that made my blood boil. She told me, "This house doesn't belong to you. It should have been mine. You don't deserve it because John doesn't belong to you." Hearing this, I lost control. I picked up a gun and shot her. Sarah continued, her voice calm, as if she were describing an everyday incident rather than a murder. Lisa wasn't badly hurt from the gunshot at first. She could have survived if I had called for help. But I panicked. I was afraid the police would investigate and punish me. So I strangled her and killed her to silence her for good. John stared at her, horrified, as Sarah revealed more of the terrible truth. "The bullet you found in the wall? That was from my gun. After killing Lisa, I wrapped her body in a plastic sheet and threw it into the basement. Then, I drove her car to a riverbank, threw her phone into the water, and destroyed any evidence linking me to the crime. I even burned the clothes I was wearing, which were stained with Lisa's blood. When you found the bullet, I knew it could all unravel, but then the police came. I knew I had to protect you. I had to make sure they didn't suspect me." John, still in shock, asked her, "Why didn't you tell me any of this sooner? Why keep it a secret?" Sarah ignored the question and made a demand. "You have to promise me one thing, John. Promise me you will never open that basement again." John pressed further. "Why, Sarah? What are you so afraid of?" Sarah's tone grew more serious. "Because Lisa's body is still down there. If anyone finds out, the evidence will point to you, not me. I made sure of that. You don't even need to know Lisa was here, because you didn't know. If anyone comes to investigate, all the evidence will incriminate you, and you'll go down for her murder. You'll be executed." Sarah leaned in closer, her calm demeanor now laced with warning. "So, it's better for both of us if we stay quiet. I'll keep your secret, and you'll keep mine. And we'll tell anyone who asks that Amy specifically forbade us from opening the basement door." John realized Sarah was being completely cold and calculating. She wasn't afraid for herself, she had already covered her tracks perfectly. She knew John had no way to prove his innocence if Lisa's body was ever discovered. At the same time, John also understood that Sarah didn't want to destroy their family. She still wanted to live with him and raise their new child together, as if none of this had ever happened. Reluctantly, John agreed to Sarah's demands. But even as he nodded, he felt the weight of the decision pressing on him. He couldn't shake the uneasiness in his heart. Sarah, sensing his hesitation, tried to reassure him. "Look, John," she said. "People go missing in this city all the time. If the police don't find any clues soon, they'll stop investigating Lisa's disappearance. You just have to trust me." After hearing this, John finally agreed to seal the basement door once and for all. From that day on, they lived in the house for many years. They celebrated holidays, hosted events, and built a life together as if nothing had ever happened. Sarah appeared content and even happy, but John was a different story. The strain of keeping their secret weighed heavily on him. Though he never said anything, his troubled expression often gave him away. Years passed, and one day, John and Sarah received an unexpected parcel in the mail. It was from Amy, the original owner of the house. Inside the package was a single item, the key to the basement. The letter accompanying the key read, "You've passed the test. You showed patience and restraint by not opening the basement door. Now, the house is truly yours, including whatever lies within. Use this key to unlock the door whenever you're ready." John and Sarah stared at the key in silence. The weight of the letter's meaning hung heavily in the air. They had spent so much time hiding the truth, burying their secret in the darkness of the basement. And now, Amy's gift had given them permission to confront it. The film ends on a suspenseful note, leaving the audience wondering, will they open the basement, or will they leave their dark secret buried forever?